Hello. I just want to do a little review of my Ibanez Tube Screamers. Over the years I've amassed a collection of Ibanez Tube Screamers, though at the time I bought each one of them, I didn't buy them to collect them. Well, most of them. I didn't buy them to collect them. The first few that I bought to use, which is why the older ones are pretty beat up. So let's get going with my history. I don't own an original Ibanez TS-808. 808s came out in 1979 and they made them for 3 years up until 1982. I bought my first Tube Screamer in '83, so that was the TS9. But back to the TS-808, it was made by Ibanez. It was the first Tube Screamer. There wasn't a lot of them made, and they are sort of legendary, and you'll see them, if you want an original one, you'll see them going up to like $1,000 now on eBay. I never had one, and I don't need one, and I'll explain that in a minute. But here's my TS9. This TS9 was made in 1982. That's when they made the TS9s, from 82 to 85. The circuit was just slightly different than the ones in the original TS-808s. Over the years, Ibanez put different IC chips in the various models of the Tube Screamers. Now the 808 and the TS9 had virtually the same chips put in them. But I don't really want to get into that idea of what chips go in which one. If you're really that interested, I suggest you go online. There's quite a few articles about which chip was made in what year and when in which version. To me, it's like arguing about which tubes sound better in which amp. It's all a matter of personal taste. So here's the TS9. Now here's one you don't see too often. This was called the Super Tube. In reality, some people will say, well, that's not an Ibanez Tube Screamer because it doesn't actually say Tube Screamer on it. It was made in 1985 only, and only made for a couple of months. This is after they discontinued making the TS9. I have no idea why they did that, but they stopped making the TS9, and for a while, a few months, the Super Tube was what took its place. Now the thing with the Super Tube is it has the same circuitry in it as a TS9, except they added another mid-range control. So this has two controls on it for tone. This one's called Bite and this one's called Bright. And the Bite is the mid-range control. In late 1985, I guess Ibanez decided that, gee, the Tube Screamer was a pretty good seller and we should reintroduce it. So they came out with the TS10, which is very similar to the TS9 in that it uses a lot of the same circuitry, and the earliest versions of the TS10 used the same basic IC chips that were found in the TS9. And in fact, this is one of those early ones. But this suffered from a problem that started with the actual Super Tube before it, and I'll explain it. As you can see on an Ibanez TS9, the inputs and outputs are actually separate, and they are actually mounted on the case itself, the metal case. So they're pretty durable. The TS9, I guess to save money or make it faster, they mounted the inputs and outputs on the circuit board itself, like this. So if something happens to these, and they're plastic by the way, if something was to happen to these, it'd be very difficult to replace these, especially for a pedal that at the time cost about $35. So that became an issue. You had to be careful with these inputs and outputs on the TS10. Now, I mentioned before I don't have a TS808 and I don't really need one because I have two TS10s, and the first one I bought I sent to Robert Keeley, and he modded this one to original 808 specs. That was many years ago, very early on when he started doing stuff. In fact, this is the first time I've ever actually opened it since I got it back from him years ago, and I noticed that he signs the inside of the case so that no one can just put a sticker on his work. Anyway, TS10 is my favorite. I like that it has a little brighter high end, and it just seems a little smoother to me, and I like it a lot. In late 1988, Ibanez stopped issuing the TS10 Tube Screamer, and in 1989 they came out with the Tube Screamer TS5. As you can see, they didn't follow the numbers in any way, but the TS5 Tube Screamer, which they nicknamed the Sound Tank, I have no idea why. According to the Analog Man website, which by the way is the best source of the real tech stuff on Ibanez Tube Screamers and which chips go in where and blah blah blah, the Sound Tank actually has the same circuitry as a TS9. So if you want a TS9 sound, you can usually pick these up on eBay for $30, $40 tops. They go very cheap. The problem that most people have with these, and I don't have that problem, but they made a plastic case. It's a heavy duty, but it is a plastic case, and that turns a lot of people off. I don't actually use this much. This is one of those things I did buy just for the collection, and I got it, came in the original box, so that was a real plus. So the Sound Tank was made up till 1999. Of course, during the 90s, Ibanez started reissuing the TS9 in its original configuration, like this. At the same time, they were still selling the Sound Tank, which they sold up until 1999. 1999, they came out with the TS7. Once again, I guess the numbers don't actually mean anything. TS7. This is one of my favorite pedals. This is called they nicknamed this the Tone Lock series, and for a very good reason. They did something exceptionally smart, and as far as I know, this is the only pedal that does this, and they should have continued to do it. All the controls are spring-loaded. They pop out. So you set your controls and then just push them back in, and your controls won't get changed accidentally. It's really a very smart thing to do, and they work really well. This has a TS9 setting and is basically a TS9 circuit with a different IC chip. It sounds like a TS9 to me. Then it's got this hot mode, and what the hot mode is, it's a boost circuit. So if you really want a heavy output, just switch it over to the hot mode, and it's a lot more volume. I think so much of the Tone Lock Ibanez TS7 that I started buying them when I saw they were very inexpensive on eBay. So I bought this one, which came in the original box, and it's never been out of the box. It's still wrapped and has never been used. Along with that, I bought 1, 2, 3, 4. I have a total of 5 of these, actually 6 of these, because now that I think of it, I have one on a pedal board that I use occasionally. Of course, I'm just keeping them. I've watched these go from $25 now up to $60, $70, and I think within the next year or two, people will be paying over $100 for these. And since I never paid more than $35 for any of these tone lock pedals, and I've watched the prices go up because you can't get the TS10s anymore for under $150. You can't get a TS9 pedal, original pedal, under $300, and if you got it for $300, it's pretty beat up. And the 808s I've seen up to $800 to $1,000. So if you're looking for that sound at a decent price, and one that's going to go up in years to come, pick up the TS7. They're still out there. Check eBay. Check Reverb. Check other things. I want to mention a couple other pedals that are not official Tube Screamers, but they're from the era. One is this, the DS10 Distortion Charger, which has 3 tone controls. And it's actually a pretty nice pedal. Then there's the Metal Charger. Again, has 3 tone controls. Both pretty nice. I'm not as crazy about this, but it is a mid-80s metal tone kind of thing. Kind of a little too whiny for me, but still, in all, not a bad pedal. Now this isn't a Tube Screamer either, but it is an Ibanez overdrive pedal. This is the Tube King. As you can see, I'm missing a knob up here. Happened on a gig one night when something fell on it, I don't remember what, and broke the knob off, broke the shaft. So I cut a little notch in the top of this, and you can, with a screwdriver, you can adjust the master volume. But since when I used it, I only set the master volume once and never moved it again. This is a nice pedal. The problem with it that I had was it's a little too big for most pedal boards, decent sized pedal boards. You can't power it. You really need a separate power, its own power supply. And it's nice. And now it collects dust in my equipment room. And although these next 2 items are not officially Tube Screamers, they have Tube Screamers in them. This is the Power Trio. It's got a Tube Screamer, a delay, and a chorus. And I used it for a little while. And I couldn't tell you which version of the Tube Screamers in here. I suspect it's probably the either the TS10 or the Sound Tank TS9 style version that was in the TS5. And after that, in the early 90s, I got this, which is really nice, and I used this for years. I have 2 of them because I bought one as a backup after I found I liked it. This is the PT3DX. This has compressor, distortion, a 3-band EQ, chorus flanger, delay or reverb, and a noise gate with master volume. And it's totally programmable. It was the first programmable pedal I had ever seen, and it really is extremely easy to use and program. And the only reason I stopped using this after a few years when they came out with other pedals was that you couldn't use the delay and the reverb together. You had to either use delay or reverb. It's a choice you made, delay or reverb, but not both together. And that's the only reason I stopped using this PT3. It sounds really good. And again, I would suspect that the TS, the Tube Screamer that's in this, would be, since it was the 90s, this would probably be Sound Tank era, which was the duplication of the TS9 circuit. So that's it. Thanks for watching. If nothing else, I hope you had fun just looking at some old Tube Screamers. Bye.